What is going on YouTube? Today I want to talk to you about building this Viking chair. My name's Andy, this is Cedar River Woodworking, and welcome to the shop. So these chairs are what we are going to build. They're really fun to build. They work great for sporting events, for stargazing, and for just sitting around the campfire. So let's jump in and I'll show you exactly how we make these chairs. So here we are at the bench. I know a lot of our builds lately have started off at the miter saw. This one I kind of wanted to change things up a little bit. We're going to be using a jigsaw for this one. Now this build, you can use a miter saw, you can use a table saw, you can use a circular saw, jigsaw. There's all kinds of different ways that you can skin this cat. But today we're going to be using the jigsaw. I have a 2x12 here in front of me. A 2x12 is actually 1.5 inches thick by 11 inches wide. I don't know why they do that, but if you know, leave it down in the comments for me. But we are going to start off and make this stargazer chair. A lot of people call them Viking chairs. From the research that I've seen, they're not even actually Nordic. About in the 1930s, the Boy Scouts really popularized these, and this is my take on that. I do have a little twist at the end of this on how you can make this a little easier to transport, so make sure you stick around for that. What I'm going to do here is I have a 12-inch speed square, so it fits all the way across. You can use a 6-inch speed square. You just have a little bit more chance of an error for that one. But I'm going to measure from the end here 48 inches and strike a line. And we're going to cut 2 of these at 48 inches. Now I have a 12-foot long board. It's the only thing that I could find at my local big box store. But if you can find one that's 8 foot long, then you can just cut it in half and that works perfectly fine. So I'm going to have to make 2 cuts on this. I'm actually going to use my speed square here to give me my offset, and I can cut a straight line with my jigsaw. So I'm going to line up my jigsaw here and put my speed square next to it. And you can clamp this in place. I have a pretty good grip on it here, so I'm fairly sure that it's not going to move around on me. I don't have any support on this end. Just make sure you let that drop. You don't want to be trying to catch stuff and trying to wrangle everything at the same time. All right, now that I have one of these cut out, I'm going to cut out a second one, and I'll be right back with you. All right, so now that I have the 2 of these cut out here, I want to add a little bit of decoration to the ends of these boards. It'll give it a little bit of flair on its own. So on one end of these, I'm going to measure down about 4 inches. This 4 inches I'm going to measure on both sides. And then I'm going to take my speed square and I'm just going to draw a 45-degree angle on that on both sides. Then what we're going to do for this is we're going to cut these corners off of here to give a little bit of a taper design to it so it's not so square and boxy. So to make these cuts, I can also use the same speed square and I can clamp it to the side there. It's not going to give you a ton of room to hang off of here. So we can freehand this and then sand it smooth later. Again, you can make it on your miter saw if you wanted to make this cut on there as well. So I'm going to clamp these down just so I have a little bit better control, and I'm going to go ahead and cut these corners off of both of these boards on one end. Now when you're making these cuts, make sure you go nice and slow. If you're freehanding it, you can get nice and clean, straight edges with that. Now that we have the corners cut off of this, so you have some nice tapered edges on it, we're going to set one off to the side because then we're going to be starting to work on just the seat aspect of this. Now these seats will thread through the other piece, so we're going to have to cut a hole inside of that piece there, which is going to be our back, but we are going to start off with our seat. So now that we have our seat section isolated, we are going to measure down from the end that we cut the corners off of. I'm going to measure 11 inches. And at that 11-inch mark, so on my speed square, I have some notches inside of here that I can put my pencil inside of, and I can drag a line. So from that 11-inch mark, from the outside edge, I'm going to measure in 2 inches, and I'm going to draw that line all the way down the length of this board. And then we need to cut these. So how we're going to cut these is we're going to use a jigsaw again, but we're going to use a straight edge along the length of the board so that we can cut those out. Now, if you don't have any of the tools that I have here, I will have them linked in the video description below. And if you've made it this far, let me know down in the comments. Would you rather have a 12-inch speed square or a 6-inch speed square? If you want both of them, that's perfectly okay too. Let me know down in the comments below. Also, if you've made it this far, please consider subscribing. It really helps out the channel. One more thing before we cut this, I'm going to take that 11-inch mark and I'm going to draw it out on the sides here as well, so I know where I need to stop my cut. So I'm going to clamp a straight edge right here to the board, and we're going to go ahead and get this cut. Once we have the offset set for our blade here to get exactly on the line, then we're going to make the cut. It is just over 1.5 inches for my particular saw. You'll have to measure yours out, and it could be different than what my DeWalt is here. So let's go ahead and get this cut. Now with that long cut done, we are going to cut off this 2-inch piece off of the outside of here. And I'm going to use the same thing. I'm going to use the speed square as a guide for me. I'm going to light up my blade here and make the cut. Now that we have one side of that cut off here, we're going to go ahead and cut the other side off. And we're going to want to keep one of these pieces because it's going to help us with that storage solution that I talked about earlier. Alrighty, now that we have that one piece cut out, this should look kind of like an arrow here. And then we have a full width piece like this. Now, using a jigsaw for that cut is probably not the best. They're not great for long cuts, or rip cuts is what they're known as. But we have this set up. This piece here, the back width of it should be about 7 1/8 of an inch. But it really depends on how you cut the line. If you cut on the inside of it, the outside of it, blade width, things like that. So this, what we're going to do next, is going to really dial in how this fitment fits together. So I'm going to take the end of this board, so essentially the arrow, and I'm going to put it towards the uncut end, or the straight end of the backboard here. So what we're going to do is we need to make a slot or a mortise so that this fits through. How I normally make them is about 11 inches up is the bottom of the hole there. And I could use a tape measure and measure up 11 inches. But since this seat part is 11 inches, I'm just going to put it down here towards the end. And I'm going to line up everything so it's nice and square to each other. And since the seat is 11 inches, I'm going to trace out the edge of this. So now if there's any type of variation between the measurements that we should have, this is going to make it so that this board fits through there correctly. This is called referential measurements. And for me, I find that referential measurements are the best out of all of the things that I can do on my particular builds. So now that I have that drawn out, I can establish the bottom side of this, and I'm just going to use my speed square to get that here. And now to set up the width of the board that we need to cut, one of those cutoffs, I'm just going to lay it across here and line up the bottom of that, and then I'm just going to trace across here. So this signifies the absolute smallest that this board could fit through. Now we can tweak this in the future to make it wider or smaller if we want to. to make that be able to slide in easier. So now to cut out this mortise pocket, I have this lifted up on a few, these are 2x6s, to get it up off the ground so that we have clearance for our saw blade. But how we need to start this is I'm going to drill a hole. This is a 3/8 inch drill bit. All you need is just something that's bigger than your saw blade so that it can fit down inside of here. I'm going to drill in 2 of these corners, just shy of the corner so I'm not blowing out the edge of it. And now that we have those holes drilled, we're going to go ahead and cut out this mortise. Well, now that we have our hole cut out here, we are going to be able to test fit our seat plank. And I can see already that it's a little bit tight, so I'm just gonna have to do some fitment to get this to slide in here correctly. All right, after a little bit of fitment, some edge detail, and a little bit of sanding, we've got this thing as a chair. I have a couple more things that I want to show you on this, so please stick around for it. One of those things is, on this chair, if you make this back section here a little bit shorter, so instead of cutting this board at 48 inches, say you cut it at 36 inches, it'll give you a little bit more of a recline to it. I particularly like to sit more straight up, so say you're out watching a soccer game or something like that, this would be a great angle to watch some sports with. If you do want it to recline a little bit more, cut this backboard just a little bit shorter and you'll get that recline so you can watch the stars. So one more thing that I wanted to show on this was some storage solutions. So I'm going to pull this all the way out here and we're going to lay our backboard flat and then we're going to have our seat board on top of it. Now when I said that we wanted to keep some of those cutoffs, this is specifically what I'm using it for. So with these two lined up here, I can take some of those cutoffs and I can lay them next to this piece here. And then we're going to have some cross pieces like this. So what this is going to do is allow storage. So this can be one complete unit. You don't have 2 boards kind of walking all over the place. And how we're going to secure those is some 2.5 inch decking screws. So these are some Torx drive decking screws. I'm going to countersink these so that they will not split out or anything weird like that. Now I'm just going to make sure that I have a little bit of gap, some clearance to make sure that everything slides in here nice and easy. And all I'm going to do is use 1 screw on each end. Now, if you've made it this far, I'm really thinking that you enjoyed the video. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. It really helps us out, like I've said before. We do have other simple projects just like this one. So if you want to be a part of those, please make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. Now here we are, finally with our retention pieces on the back of it. You can see that these are not falling apart from each other. And this seat slat slides nice and easily out. So finally, to put it together, you take the seat slat and you slide it through the back slat. And now you have a chair. This is a nice, simple build that you and your family can enjoy around the campfire for years to come. Now, if you made it this far in the video, let me know down in the comments below if you are a stargazer and you like the more leaned back look, or if you're a soccer watcher and you like a more vertical seat like this one. Anyways, for now, my name has been Andy. This has been Cedar River Woodworking, and we'll see you in the next video.